Hi,
Oh, sorry. Hold on.
how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Nice
Sorry,
to meet
sorry. I was looking at some documents.
you. It's all right.
So sorry. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Insight Plug podcast. I am your host, Destiny, and today we have Dave Saked.
Oh, I wish my name was Dave Sick. That's a cool name, but my name's actually Dan Shaked, but that's all right. I kind of like yours better. It's all good. I'm actually thinking of changing it now because that has
No.
a little more of a pop. I'm kidding.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Insight Plug podcast. And today's guest, we have Dan Shaked,
Shaked, but that
Shaqued,
still it's
Dan
good.
Shaqued,
Yeah.
and and he's an actor, and we're going to be getting to know about this actor. He's been in, is it a movie, The Mysteries of Laura?
It's actually it was a NBC show. It was a TV show.
A
Yes.
TV show Mysteries of Laura, and today I'm gonna ask, so what made you pursue acting?
You know, I always had a flair for entertaining people. I realized that I really loved connecting to characters and being, vulnerable. But I also knew that being an actor also meant a lot of hard work on the business side. And I kind of knew that there was a difference between doing it as a hobby and doing it as a business. So I thought to myself, you know what? I'll take my dad's business skills, I'll take my mom's creative side, and I'll combine them together and I'll give it a shot. And here I am. I'm still doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, um, so what are some roadblocks that you had to face while you're pursuing the career?
I think figuring out where you fit into this business, I think that's one of the hardest things to figure out is to kind of look at yourself from the outside and kind of be real and honest with yourself and say, what do I love to do versus where can I really fit in here? And so you really have to take a look at yourself. It doesn't mean you have to limit yourself, but you have to get really honest with yourself. So there's that. And there's also the ups and downs of what they're looking for at the time. You know, sometimes you're a hot commodity and you see a bunch of projects and you're like, oh, that's me and that's me and that's me. And then sometimes you can go months and you're not what they're looking for. So the downtimes are really the difficult part is keeping yourself upbeat and figuring out things to do while you're acting that are going to keep you inspired and motivated. That's kind of the hard part, I think.
Okay, so what do you love about acting?
Oh, I get this thrill, this rush, this adrenaline rush when I'm working, um, whether it's film or TV or theater, but kind of what if it's on stage, it's when you're connecting with the audience. There is nothing better than an audience that you know is with you. That is just like a high that you can't make up. And when you're working in film and TV, it's that feeling of everyone coming together, you know, the gaffer, the sound guy, the director, and having magic moments where everyone on set felt the same thing and you know that you just got magic. I love that. I just got goosebumps saying that right now. But that those moments where you just can't make up and you don't know that they're going to happen, and some days are more interesting than others. But I love that every day is different. I love that every day you get to the theater, you come on a film set, and every day is going to be different. You don't know what's going to happen, but you know that you're all in it together. That's kind of what's cool.
Okay. And what is your greatest achievement in your career?
Oh, I think my greatest achievement has been knowing that things are going to be okay, even when you might not have a manager, you might not have an agent, you might not even have work, but you can always find work. And that I think I've achieved. I've achieved times where I don't have huge projects, but I'm always working. I'm always doing readings, I'm always doing short films, I'm always reading scripts. So that is an achievement within itself to me. Um, I think that's one of the biggest and hardest things to do, and I always can fall back on the community that I've created on my own. I haven't relied on anybody or anything. And that to me is really great because you know that you're going to work your way up with those people that you started with on some little reading that you did on Zoom in the middle of a pandemic that paid you nothing. And then 5, 6 years later, that writer or that director is working on something and they'll remember you, just like I'll remember people that I've worked with in those times. So that's my biggest achievement is the community that I've created, from bottom up.
Okay, so what are like your favorite shows or movies
Oh my
to
God.
watch?
My favorite show of all times is 6 Feet Under, which is an HBO show, an Alan Ball show. That's my definitely one of my favorite shows. Um, I've loved The West Wing. I've loved White Lotus, which is on right now. I love a lot of international shows. Some shows like some Israeli shows. I loved Unorthodox, which was a show that came from Israel. Um, uh, you know, yeah, those are some of my favorite shows. Yeah.
So
You're doing
um
great.
thank you. So what advice would you give to people who young people who are trying to pursue a career in acting?
I would say definitely make sure that you know that you want to do it as a career as opposed to fun. I think that's something that even I, as doing it years later, still ponder like, is this really happening? Am I really an actor? The imposter syndrome can really kick in. You can really feel like, I'm not sure if I'm really really doing it. Am I really an actor? Am I good? Am I not? So, making sure you have a good support system, making sure you have a good therapist, and making sure that you love doing it, even if you're not getting paid to do it. Because of course we all want to get paid,
Mhm.
but a lot of the times you got to do things for not non-pay, and you got to make sure you love doing it, and being honest with yourself about whether you really like to do it or you're in it for other reasons, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So uh what movie are you currently working on or recently worked on? What was
So,
the
so
current?
this year I actually worked on two projects. One of them was a pilot in Portland called John Sunshine's Lost Rock and Roll Tapes, which was a pilot about four guys who want to. It's loosely based off of a real magazine called Cream Magazine. It's based on it. I'm wearing the T-shirt of it about four guys that want to get a job at the magazine company. In order to get the magazine to work at the magazine, they have to interview less known British rock star from back in the day. And so they end up taking the interview, but at the interview, he ends up being a killer and he kills one of us. And that starts the pilot. So that was
Okay.
one thing, which was really cool to do. And the other thing I did was a movie in LA called Good Grief, which is about two sisters that come home to grieve their mother who just died. And all the characters that come along from their hometown that also grieve with them. It's funny, it's sad, it's something in between. I play the brother. Sorry, not the brother. I play the boyfriend of one of the sisters. I have dreadlocks in the movie. I live on an ashram in India with my girlfriend, who is the sister, and we both come home to grieve. And I am completely out of place. I'm a fish out of water. I don't know how to read the room. I am not helpful in the grieving process, but I am there to support my girlfriend who I very much care about. I just happen to go about it in the wrong ways. I filmed that for 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks in LA in Northridge and Riverside with a fantastic cast.
Okay. Do
Yeah,
you like the audition process of acting?
that is a good question. I have to say, I have never been one who's been great at auditioning. It is my
Oh,
biggest fear. I still have it until today. I think it's the biggest thing to overcome. I don't know if I'll ever overcome it, but boy, is it difficult. Boy, is it difficult to audition. Um, I I think that's why when you ask me what's my biggest achievement has been to find work outside of the audition process because I such a fear of audition
Yeah.
that I said to myself, okay, and I've booked things off of auditions, don't get me wrong, but if you can find ways to work with people by not auditioning,
Hmm.
the auditions start to feel like you're not as desperate. You don't need it as much because you've built other things. But auditioning is really scary because you want to be what they're looking for. You're reading into things. You're reading the breakdown of what the role says. Is you're trying to be that character. And so I've learned over time to let go and kind of just do my best, do take a class of auditioning that kind of gets the nerves away, and realize that if you're doing exactly what you're told to do on the page and you're giving your own special sauce, that's the best you can do. But auditioning is definitely anxiety producing. There's no way around it. But the pandemic has helped me because now self-taping, I'm a better
Right.
self-taper. I'm a better auditioner by self-taping.
Hmm.
I used to not like to go in the room because it scared me. I had such an anxiety about going in the room and having everyone look at me.
There's
And
like
it
five,
took me,
10 people in there.
oh my God. I was like 10 people looking at me. This guy is eating his sandwich. This woman is on her phone. You don't know who's who in the room. Did they
Right.
like me? It was terrible. But you got to do it sometimes, and I've learned to do it. But self-taping, you have some sort of control over it at least. So
Okay. Where do you see yourself in 5 or 10 years in your career?
I see myself booking some recurring roles, some bigger arcs on TV shows, I think. I see myself maybe directing and producing. I just wrote a pilot on my own. It was the first time I've ever written something. I wrote a show, a pilot, a 1 hour dramedy about a guy an American young man who inherits his grandmother's building in Tel Aviv, Israel, who's going through kind of a cultural identity crisis. And all about the cultural mishaps that happen and the differences between Americans and Israelis and Americans. And it's really formatted for anybody that comes from two cultures, or as I am. My parents are Israeli and I was born in the US. So
Okay.
it's written that it can be formatted for anybody, somebody who was born in Haiti but lives in the US, somebody who was born in Canada but lives in Sweden, about someone that kind of doesn't know where to live and what to do and is dealing with two identities at the same time.
Okay.
So I can see myself producing that, and then maybe that leading to other producing work and acting all the time. But I'm kind of interested in producing and directing as I get a little bit older. I start to realize there's something fun in that too. And after doing so many acting gigs in other people's work, I noticed that, like, I think I can do the directing thing. I think I can do the producing thing. It's not as daunting anymore.
Okay. So where do you see the difference in, is it Israeli films? What would you call that? Because I know India calls it Bollywood.
Mhm.
Israel, what would they call their Hollywood?
I don't think that there's a name for it. I think that's just kind of right now. That's an interesting question, also. Like that, why isn't there a name for it? It's just Israeli content right now. There's a
Okay.
boom in Israeli content right now. It wasn't like that always, but over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of shows that Israeli writers are writing and then selling and formatting to Hollywood. And there's more kind of connections going on between LA and Israel, where they're bringing Israeli TV writers and producers for weekends and weeks in LA to meet with producers there, so that there can be that bridge. There's a gap right now, and they're trying to bridge it so that it makes it easier for people to sell that content. And I thought to myself, where do I find myself on that spectrum? Right in between. So why did I write a show that deals with Americans and Israelis? Because it's a hybrid, kind of like what's going on right now in a lot of the content that's going on.
Right. So what, as far as plots and storytelling,
Yeah,
because I know in Korean dramas they
yeah.
have maybe short stories, versus Americans have really long episodes. So what do you think is the difference, or what makes Israeli films unique to you?
Hmm. Hmm. I think that the landscape, maybe the cultural landscape that's going on in Israel is so unique and specific than any other country. Obviously, politically, there's a lot, it's very charged
Mhm.
politically. But just even how it looks and the things that they're dealing with in terms of domestically, in terms of family, in terms of the army, in terms of military, in terms of religion. Um, it feels very, it's closer to European films than it is to Americans. There's something very deep feeling about Israeli films, very literally also, very, the lens feels like it's very almost grainy. I don't know how to explain it. It almost feels so, it's hyper real. It feels like a lot of the American shows that we see are very glossy. I think there's a tendency for Israel now to also want to dip into that kind of glossy look, colorful, glossy, kind of like network TV, like prime time, that Community and The Office and that. And Israel is kind of trying to do that. But what I love about the if it's Israeli is that it doesn't have that glossiness. It feels grainy. It feels grimy. It feels like you're almost watching it through a family home camera, like we used to back in the day. That's kind of like what I like, and that's what I connect to in Israeli shows.
Okay. Um, so what is, I don't know if this is the same question. What is the greatest moment you've experienced um while,
Hmm.
acting and just the whole process?
Boy, two incidences. One of them is I did a play called On the Spectrum, which was at the Fountain Theater in Hollywood. It was one of the first things I did when I got to LA, and it was definitely one of the most rewarding experiences I had. I played a young man with Asperger's, and who falls in love with a woman who is low functioning. It speaks through a computer called a Proloquo. That was definitely the most rewarding show I did because the autism community came out. I got to perform for autistic kids from all over the world, country that came from Arizona, schools came, and to see, it was one of the first times that a lot of these kids after the show, they came and hugged me. Some of them cried saying, I finally get to see a kid like me on stage. The social reward of doing a play like that is priceless for sure. And one of the other most rewarding experiences I had was I did a reading last year, right? Last year with Kathleen Turner, a very well-known actress who played my mother for the Provincetown Theater Gala, and it was a play about dying. It was a comedy, also not a comedy, about a family that comes together to play a board game. And the board game deals with everybody asking themselves how they want to die. And then you also see flash forwards to how they actually die. And it was a lead role with Kathleen Turner, who I love, who is like, working with, I think that's one of the things when you work with someone that you've admired your whole life, and all of a sudden you're in a play with that person, sharing a stage with hundreds and hundreds of people that are with you. I remember at the end, I just couldn't believe that I did it. And, that's when you're working with people that are the big sharks that you're going, I can't
Mhm.
believe I have a role opposite that person. You kind of feel like, wow, in some little way or some big way, I made it. Even if I never work again, I'm happy. That's the feeling that you want even if I never work again, this was the most amazing night ever. And it really was one of the best nights ever. So,
That's cool.
yeah.
Um, so I think we have a few minutes left.
Okay.
So the first question is, how can people come in contact with you? Do you have any social media outlets or anything like that?
Sure. My Instagram is my name, Dan, Dan, Shaked, Shaked, like Dan Shaked. My Twitter is the same thing, at Dan Shaked. I'm on Facebook, Dan Shaked. My website is danshaked.com. I think I hit all of the social
Did you
medias.
say Instagram? Or,
The Instagram is
mm,
Dan Shaked, at Dan Shaked. And I have a manager, so if there's any writers, directors, producers, also you can contact me at my manager right now, which is on my IMDb. Um, yeah, those are the ways. So I hope people do. I'd be happy to talk to them.
and the other question is, what do you want people to remember you for, or what you're about, like when you pass on and go?
That's a good question. I think I want people to remember me as someone that gave something back in every project. I really want to make sure that every project I'm giving something that maybe if they didn't cast anybody else, they couldn't have gotten, that I gave them something, whether it's the writer, director, the audience. I want to make sure that I left a mark so that someone could be moved, touched, upset, angry, whatever it is. I wanted them to move, and my tenacity. I think that's another thing, like to not give up, to evolve, even if I want to do some other things. Sometimes right now in life, as you get older, you might want to try other things. I might want to be a therapist. I might want to dabble in business school, whatever it is to remember that it's all worth it. Every reading, every job that you do is worth it. And I think that's something that I try to tell people as I come in contact with them on projects, that to never give up and to always not always say yes, because sometimes saying no is good, but to remember that there's always a reason for every project. So to remember me as someone that always shows up regardless of what project it is.
Okay. And the
Yeah.
last question, if you could change any decision that you made throughout your career, what would you change?
I think that I think that I would have picked up, I love acting and I'm always going to continue acting, but I think I would have picked up um, another degree or really dabbled in something completely in a different field earlier on in my life, so that when you don't know what's going to happen in life, like the pandemic or
Mhm.
things like that, you have something to fall back on. Now I have other ways that I do that, but I really wish sometimes like I did something early, much earlier on, like a second degree, or fully trained in something completely different than acting, because it really does widen your knowledge about things. And I always thought, oh no, I have to focus on acting, I have to focus on it, I have to focus, and you do on some level. It is time consuming, but I think back and I go, I should have, maybe gotten a degree earlier, but it's never too late to do that still. So I might still do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so the next question is, oh man, I'm trying to figure because I think we have like 3 or 5 minutes and I ran out of questions.
Oh, just talk to me. Tell
All
me.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, did you have oh, so Hollywood, there's this thing where there's social media, right? And a lot of people are starting to kind of create their Hollywood space. Like not everyone's auditioning. Some people are doing YouTube channels and creating their own businesses. Um, where do you see Hollywood going? Do you think that they would join in with the social media, which they are because they have like YouTube
Right.
channels themselves? I guess my question is, where do you see Hollywood in 5 to 10 years?
I think it's probably going even more in that direction. More people. I came when I was still at NYU. I was training classically, in which I love my training. I studied at Strasberg method acting with a fantastic teacher named Lola Cohen, who that's the base crux of my training. But I think it's going to become more and more kind of like you can do a monologue on TikTok today and a casting director can see it and they can offer you a part, especially if you have followers. And that's something that I think we resisted for a long time. I don't see that changing anymore. I think that we are heading more and more in that direction of more and more people creating their own content. I don't think that's going away anytime soon. So I see Hollywood kind of forming more and more channels, like you said. I think more and more people are going to come up with more and fascinating ways to connect with people. It's going to become faster. It's going to become more accessible. I don't think we're going back. I don't think we're going back. And a lot of people who didn't have classical training these days get acting jobs because
Mhm.
because of their accessibility. And you can't fight it, and everyone has a talent and can probably show that talent in some way. Some people can be bitter about that, kind of like I trained and they didn't. But I don't think it's worth being upset about. I think like we're back to your question that we are heading more and more in that digital way. And it's going to be harder and harder to keep the pulse on it because we're going to find faster and faster ways to connect and people's heads are going to start spinning. Maybe, that's what I think. Like eventually maybe something will happen where everything's happening so fast that there'll be some big combustion and
Hmm.
things will slow down maybe. But I don't think anytime soon, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so thank you for coming on the show. Sorry for the introduction.
Please, are you kidding me? You don't think I get that all the time? Actually, if you're already gonna say the different name, at least you didn't say Dan something else. You gave me Dave, which I'm like, you know what? That's a completely different name. Love it.
Okay, but thank you for taking your time out to come on the show, and for the audience out there, we have Dan.
Shakehead,
Check it.
like
Check
shake
it.
mustard. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, Destiny. You were really great, and
Thank you.
thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, and
Thank
talk
you.
to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Bye. Have a good one.
Bye.